So welcome everyone to our meeting for this week for our Introduction to Networks class. It is 4/12/21. Thank you very much for being here. And a good question came in. One of the students asked, are the due dates in the syllabus set in stone? In other words, if you don't make them, will I drop you? The answer is no, it is not. Now, the one thing I needed everyone to do the introductory assignment. I needed everyone to redeem their seat token so that I can turn on exams. I'm actually going to show you how to turn on exams today because this week, one of the items is to take the modules 1 through 3 exam. So you'll have the third, tomorrow I'll have the third lecture out for you to review. And then sometime during this week, you can take that exam and I'll show you where that's at. But other than that, these are due dates are suggestions. They're not absolute set in stone. So please be aware of that. I know you are working full time. I know you're like me. We're all just trying to teach classes and make it through every day. So please don't feel like you are going to be dropped if you missed one of these. Also, again, remember, I'm only wanting you to do 80% of the labs and packet tracers. You're not having to do all of these. I listed all of them just like it was a normal student class. But if you look at one and go, oh, I know how to do this. This is something I don't need to do. We'll skip it and move forward. So, and I'm not gonna be sitting there going, oh no, they did 78.2% instead of 80. I'm not that kind of instructor. I'm not here to get you. I'm here to help you learn the materials and do my best to help you implement this program at your school. So be aware that's where we stand. The other thing I wanted to do though is I did want to make you aware that any lab that is in bold is a lab that is on our Netlabs system. And I'm going to explain that today. And I also showed it to you in our lecture that I sent out and that I posted in our class. But just be aware if it's in bold, that is one that is on our netlabs.stanley.edu system. And I will explain what that is today. Okay, Francisco, you had a hand raised. What is it?
Professor Correll, I really appreciate the fact that you saved the class and then you also have a YouTube. You have it in YouTube. That is very helpful. Okay, that's extremely helpful.
Good.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and I'm glad it's useful. And like I said, as I continue to do the lectures, I'll be posting them all there. My YouTube channel is mostly just lectures from other classes. Occasionally, you may get a painting video or a duck hunting video. Just be aware that most of it's just class stuff. So, but my nephew the other day wanted to post a painting video, and I can't deny my nephew, so we did a little miniature painting video. Jacob, you had a question?
No, I think that question is fine. So when it comes to me, I'm going to let you know. So. Okay.
And folks, feel free, once you start teaching these classes, if you feel the lectures that I have done are useful, I don't take them down. In fact, if you look back on my YouTube channel, you can find lectures from version 6 and before of the CCNA. But if you decide that you want to use them in your own classrooms, feel free. I'm more than welcome for you to post them and use them. I have no problems with that whatsoever. I do, as you've noticed, I put a disclaimer in front of all my lectures that I post. I'm not trying to make a perfect lecture. I think we get into trouble when we do things and make videos for our classes. We try to make it absolutely perfect. If I'm lecturing and my phone rings, I'm just going to pause it and then I'm going to pick right back up. I'm not going to try to make it absolutely perfect. None of us, well, I don't anyway. I don't have perfect lectures in the classroom, so I'm not going to try to make my lectures online perfect either. So I want today, first off, I want to review module 1, just talk a little bit about, hopefully you've watched the lecture and read the chapter, but the big takeaways from module 1. Big thing 1 is getting you comfortable with Packet Tracer, getting you to install Packet Tracer 8 and feel comfortable with it. Also, just basic networking. You know, this is a look at what is an end device versus an intermediary device. Can someone actually, since I've got, let me just see if I can't see here. I'll do Vince, give me a definition of an end device or an example of an end device.
An end device. I'm sorry, I'm a little behind, but I'd say an end device as opposed to what kind of device?
As opposed to an intermediary device. So an end device is the opposite of a networking device. So what would you, I'll give you a great example. You're sitting in front of one.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with computer. And
Computer, there you go. Good answer.
Call that a
Good
win.
Exactly. So end devices are those devices that typically we either are interacting with to input information or to output information, like a printer. A printer would be considered an end device. Jelani, what would be an intermediary device?
It's Jelani, but it would be
Jelani,
like
I'm
a
sorry,
switch.
Jelani.
It's all right. It happens all the time. Switch, router.
Switch, router, access point. So
Yes.
wireless access points, firewalls, all of those are intermediary devices.
Intrusion
So
devices.
Definitely, very good. So those devices, and actually in our chapter 2, as you will see, and if you've looked at the lecture, the great thing about this curriculum is module 2 is immediately actually configuring devices, which I absolutely love. So peer-to-peer versus server-based networks. Jacob, give me an example of peer-to-peer, or what's the difference between peer-to-peer and a server-based network?
Peer-to-peer is easy, and then it's cheaper
Yep.
to connect with the because but he have the disadvantage too, because when one device is breakdown, it affect the whole network.
Okay, exactly. A peer-to-peer is, like you said, it's cheaper, easier to configure, less secure, definitely less secure, but much cheaper. I just helped unpack 5 servers just a little bit ago. We were actually putting them on the rack or putting them on the table and burning them in. So we let them run a couple of days with just power before we rack them, just to ensure nothing is going to throw an error just straight out of the box, which does happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. But in server-based networks, we have servers, and those servers are between $10,000 and $20,000 depending on what the server is, or more. Can be more. I have paid actually $50,000 for a server, but now it was a blade server with 4 separate servers inside of it. So server-based networks are more secure, they are centralized administration, and they are typically more expensive because we have to have servers and we have to have people to run those servers. Now, let's, Princess, what is a LAN?
Isn't that I don't know.
You do. It's a local.
I was gonna say that.
You got it. That's it. It's just
My
a local.
brain just froze. I'm so
That's
sorry.
okay. That's okay. It's a local area network. So it is a network within, here's how I teach, a limited geographical area. Remember, the L is limited. So limited geographical area. Versus our WANs, which are wide area.
Wide area. I knew
Exactly,
that.
which connects, actually, basically WAN connections connect LANs together. And sometimes you may have heard CANs, campus area network. So it's a network on a single campus or a multiple buildings on a single campus. A MAN, or a metropolitan area network, which is within a single city. And then one that we use in the data center all the time are SANs, or storage area networks. Yes. And you can spend a lot of money on a storage area network when you start getting some of the vendors out there that build bespoke storage area networks. But they are usually in our data centers, and they provide the back-end storage for our virtualization servers. Okay, Francisco.
Mr. Cotto,
Yes,
for
sir.
example, what would you call Teams or Slack? My daughter uses Slack, and it seems to me that they are special ones or corporate ones, or do you have a different name?
Those are all applications. I would say that Slack and Teams are just applications. Now they make use of your local area network and your wide area network connection.
Okay.
So I would say that those would be applications. I would call them network applications. Is what I would call those. Or actually, a good word for it is collaboration applications, or collab, because they allow you to do collaborations. So, and in fact, that's the word Cisco uses for it. They call it collaboration for Teams and for WebEx Teams. Very good. Module 1 also talked a little bit about some trends like BYOD, bring your own device, cloud, the move towards cloud and virtualization, which we are virtualizing everything now, and then security threats and our different security threats. Any questions about module 1 before we start talking about a very important concept for everyone on this call, or on this meeting, actually?
Oh, Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
sometimes when you are doing the topology with land and ones, I know there maybe you're going to come across it and then you're trying to configure it with your end devices and switches. Because I was trying to navigate and practice with it, and I found it very difficult, maybe because we have not reached the area. And I see that chapter 2 is talk about the configuration of each one of them. So I don't, well, maybe you're going to came across it. The question I want to ask you before that it was speaking in my mind is that the exam that you're going to give us, is that a reflective or some kind of things that we might be expecting the certification exam?
It is, no, the exam that we have, the module exams, and in fact, I'll do that right now. I'll go turn it on. The module exams are not reflective of the actual certification exam. Now, when we get through our third class, when you get done with the last class with me, there is a practice certification exam there. In addition, I showed you a little bit about Safari Online that we have. There's a ton of materials in there that you can use. So I'm going to I'll make that available to you or show you that again as we continue to move forward. Okay. Princess, you have your hand up. Question.
I just had this question, you know, on our practice, when you said when we do, when we upload something and you have to make sure you've done all the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
After we've done that, do we have additional exercises we can do, or we can only do that one?
Now, for the packet tracers themselves, they are designed to be a single, a one and done type thing. Now, the beauty of the way the curriculum is set up is that typically what happens is, like for instance, you will do a packet tracer that has you do a large number of the same tasks that you're then going to do on real world equipment. So you get multiple chances to practice it. Also, as we move forward, we're just in the second module. So as we move forward, we'll continue to build on every single one of the concepts and modules that we're working in.
Okay.
Again, Kelly.
Yes.
Okay. In some of the questions that we have, like verify, would that be like if I use the packet tracer from one PC to the other, and it gives me successful, would that be a good way of doing the verifying that the connection is correct?
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. When you can ping between the two, then you typically have got a good connection. So definitely. So very good. I want to show you something real quickly. Obviously, one of your tests that's available is, or could do this week before next Monday, is this module 1 through 3 communication exam. One of the tasks you as an instructor must do is you must turn on the assessments for your students. So you do that by inside the class, there's a thing called Assessment Center. And inside of here, you can set up different activation profiles. Now for this class, for you as instructors, here's how I set my profile up. I actually set it up so that you can do the exams up to 10 times, and you have 3 hours on each exam. The reason I do this is because I'm not using these exams for you to make a grade. I'm wanting you to learn the materials. Now, when your students are doing this, you probably don't want them to be able to do 10 different attempts, because they're going to eventually make 100 on it. You may only want to allow them 2 attempts and make the instructor approve additional attempts, or just 1 attempt. But for us, I set it up so that the activation profile is very simple. Then I can go in here and do create activations, and I can set which exam I want to set. And I'm actually going to turn on all the exams at one time, because that will activate it from now until our class technically ends on the 10th. So I usually go a little bit past, simply because many times, even though the class is ending on a particular date, not everyone gets finished on that day. And that's something I have learned just through multiple years of teaching at Instructor Training Center. So I typically have the class actually going past the end date, and I turn the exams on for a little bit past the end date. But I'll do create advanced activations. And now everyone who's in the class right now, and that's why I haven't turned it on yet, because if you will see, this is now activated for every one of you that are now in the class. If you have not redeemed your seat token, this exam is not active for you. So you do not want to activate this until all of your students have redeemed their seat token or you've gotten them into class. So make sure you do that, and so that you don't accidentally say, I've activated it, and a student says, well, I'm not able to see it. Well, they're not going to be able to see it because they were not in the class at the time you activated it. So Assessment Center, we'll go over this much more, but I just created an activation of those module exams. There are also packet tracer skills assessments that we can do here. There are course feedback and the practice final exam. And then finally, this will be your written exam that you will do at the very end of class that I will turn on. So these exams by default, as we go in here and look, these exams by default are not turned on. So if you had clicked here, it told you the exam was not activated. If you click on it now, it will be activated for you, and you can take it up to 10 times. Again, that's what I do for my instructor training classes, because I'm not trying to make you have a particular grade. I just want you to learn the material. So we're using the module exams as learning tools, not assessment tools per se. All right, so that exam is on. Now, the next item, I'm actually going to leave my video on so I can see if anybody raises their hand. So Princess, do you have a question? No, okay. Now we need to talk about this. This is one of the things that you need to be aware of as you're all starting to create networking academies at your schools. First off, as a Cisco Networking Academy, you get a minimum of 60% off list price for any equipment used in the labs for the classroom. So this is not for equipment that is going to connect your campus network. This is only for equipment to be used in the labs. Each class, if you go into NetAcad and you go into resources, all resources, and you look at program resources, you will see a thing that says equipment information. Here, there are lists by curriculum of what equipment is needed to teach the CCNA version 7, what is needed to teach CCNP, what is needed to teach each one of the classes that are in the academy. I went ahead and pulled down the spreadsheet for CCNA version 7. There are 3 different lists of equipment that are available. One is 4221 routers, which are perfect routers. There's nothing wrong with them at all. They're small routers. They're a little bit harder to rack mount because you do have to buy a rack mount kit if you're going to rack mount them. And you'll notice that each pod is 2 routers and 2 switches. This is different if you've been involved in the academy before, because before it was 3 routers and 3 switches, but they made it 2 routers and 2 switches, so it doesn't need as much equipment. You can buy 4221s or 4321s or 4331s. The 4331s are the most expensive, and they actually are full 19-inch racks. I would avoid at all costs the 4321s simply because they're not terrible, but they're just not made, they're not easy to mount in a rack. They don't have a good rack mounting, and they've got an external power supply, and they're just aggravating. Same 4221 has an external power supply, but it has a special rack mount kit that you can purchase that is very easy to set up and use. So that's not a problem with the 4221. So I would go with either 4221s or 4331s. Now, what is your school going to do? That totally depends on your school. Okay, so you've got to make a choice. Are you going to put equipment in your classroom? Right now, that's probably not a good choice because of the fact that, well, be honest, most of us aren't in the classroom right now. And if you are, then that is a good choice. Is equipment going to be on a system like Netlabs? I'm going to show you my Netlabs system in a minute. Netlabs is not cheap. It is a third-party product. It is not a Cisco Academy product. It is a complete different product, but it allows you to give your equipment to your students 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have 16 Netlab pods available for our students to use. And you are going to have access to use it for your labs in this class. Or you're going to do just PT only. Now, that is an option. It's not one that I particularly like. I don't like to see academies using only packet tracer. In fact, Cisco doesn't recommend that at all. It is expected that you're going to have at least some classrooms with equipment in them. Because let's be honest, have you ever seen a job requisition or a job ad that said 2 to 3 years of packet tracer experience? No, you don't. They want you to know how to use the real Cisco IOS and how to use the real gear. If you graduate a student from the Networking Academy who's only ever used packet tracer, and on his first or her first job interview, they're asked to connect a console cable to a router or switch, and they can't do that in the real world, they're not going to get the job, and your academy is going to look bad. So we need real equipment in some form or fashion. Now, having said that, we can get away with an equipment system like Netlabs, where it is a third-party vendor. It is something that you're going to have access while you're in this class. In addition, as long as you are associated with our Academy Support Center, you as an instructor will have access to our Netlabs system to do your own labs, to study, to get ready for class. Now, I will tell you, we are sharing Netlabs access during this COVID time with some of our schools and some of their students. However, I do not have the resources to support all the schools that are in this project or in this grant. Even with putting 4 more pods online, I simply can't support every school that's in here. And that's actually part of our ASC contract, is that we will provide it for your instructors, not for your students. Having said that, I try to help as many schools as I can. If you've got 600 or 700 students, no, I can't support that on my system. If you've got a class of 10 students and they need remote access, I have helped schools out in the past with that. In fact, many schools I've helped out that are underneath us. So this system, Netlabs, and let me show it to you, okay? This is what we have here, and it is netlabs.stanley.edu. You will log into it, and when you do, this is the main interface you will see. You will need to do a lab reservation to schedule the lab. Now, the lab we're going to show you today, or I'm going to show you, is lab 292, which you will notice is our first hands-on lab that can be completed on Netlabs. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go new lab reservation, schedule lab for myself. Now I have some different items because I'm an instructor. You're only going to have schedule lab for a team or schedule lab for myself. So schedule lab for myself. You have all been placed in a class that's KFC, ITN, HBCU grant. Now the reason KFC is in front of it because that's my initials and it makes all my classes grouped together. It's the only reason I have KFC there. But so I click here and it's going to show me the labs that are available. And right here is the lab that is available, basic switch and end device configuration. I click here and I look and see, oh, wait a minute, there's only 4 pods, but Kelly told me there were 16. Well, if you click this little arrow right here, you'll notice there are 16 pods available and there will soon be 20. So if you see the first couple pods are in use, then just move over and use the other pods. They're all the same. So I'm gonna go all the way out to 16. Now the red line is right now. So that is the current time. However, if you knew that you had time tomorrow night, you could click forward and say, okay, tomorrow at, I don't know, let's say 9 o'clock, I was going to do a lab. So you can schedule labs in the future and they will show up. So let me do that. I'm actually going to schedule one for tomorrow at 9 for a couple hours. And you'll see that lab is sitting here waiting for tomorrow at 9 p.m. I can also do a lab if I want one right now, which I'm going to do that. I go down to my class. I'm going to pick lab 292. And I'm going to go over to pod 16 and click the red arrow, which is right now. So it's our current time. Now, you can schedule for up to 4 hours, any lab. I strongly suggest a minimum of 2 hours. The other thing you need to know is it takes about 5 to 10 minutes for the lab to boot. And then the last 10 minutes, the lab will kick you out and will reset all the devices to a base configuration so that each student gets a clean set of routers or switches and clean virtual machines. So I'm just going to do for right now 2 hours and 53 minutes. Click OK, Click OK. You'll notice now that the pod that I did for right now is available. So if I enter this lab, you will see it's initializing the pod. And it's going to take, even though it will let me in, it takes a little while for that gear to boot. This is real equipment sitting in our data center that is starting to boot up right now. So you'll see this is a real Cisco switch that is going to start booting here in just a second. So there's 2 switches and 2 virtual PCs that are booting. You'll see the PCs are actually already booting. The switches themselves will be booting here in just a minute. They actually have to go through a pre-boot process where they're turned on. They go through their normal boot. So you can actually see the system going through to boot these devices. This is real gear, folks. It's not a simulation. It's not Packet Tracer. The only thing you can't do really inside of Netlabs is you can't physically connect the cables. Everything else is available. I do want to jump back out while this is booting though and show you, if you make a reservation for tomorrow, for instance, I know I can't do this lab tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I'm not going to do that one. But if I know that, please cancel any reservation that you make that you're not going to use, because if you don't cancel it, then that is held and it will boot and it will sit there and no other student will be able to use it. So when you're doing your labs, make sure if you make a reservation, especially in the future, make sure you actually use your reservation. Questions about the scheduling of a lab process. Now, if you have real gear at your school and you want to go into the lab and use your real gear to do this, I am perfectly fine with that too. You're going to have to upload your documents once you complete them, but I want you to know that's fine. Netlabs is here for you though, and it gives you access to real equipment. The other thing I want you to be aware of is that the content tab right here, you'll notice this lab has been updated for use on Netlabs Plus. When you're doing this lab, you must use the documentation inside Netlabs. If you grab the documentation from over here, so obviously I can go into my class, I can uncheck everything, check just labs. And right here is lab 292, basic switching in device. Okay, if I open this up right here, you'll see this version has not been changed to work with Netlabs. So if you try to use this document in Netlabs, it may not work correctly. In fact, I know the module 3 labs will not work correctly if you don't use the content inside of here. Now you will notice that this is, if you download it, it's a PDF. But if you want to fill in the PDF, be aware that the PDF, because Word opens PDFs, you can just open Word and you can open that PDF. So there's no problem with opening PDFs in Word. All right, or if you have Reader, or if you have the ability, you can actually fill it in. But you'll notice it tells you, read the lab. In this lab, you're going to build simple network of 2 hosts, 2 switches. You look over here, you'll notice it's still booting. I still don't have the ability, if I'm hitting enter, you said it's ignoring you because it's doing an automated process. But now you'll notice I'm in the switch. So I could pull this content out, and this is where you really need 2 monitors, everyone, because then you can pull this out and stick it to one side. Or stick it, I'm just going to put it on the other side over here. So I'm going to put it in my other monitor over here, and it tells me what to do. It says go into switch 1. It says, and it walks through, okay, how do I get into global or privileged exec mode? I type enable, and you'll notice, just like I told you in the lecture for module 2, this is user exec mode, which is look and see. This is privileged exec mode, which is the ability to make actual changes to the device. It then walks you through going into configure terminal. And now you can walk through here. You can set the host name, do no IP domain lookup, which is all part of the command, all part of the lab over here. And it actually, you can walk through and do the lab on the real gear. So anywhere in the curriculum or in the syllabus that there is a bold lab, it is available inside of Netlabs. So let me go back out here again and show you. I can go in here and go home, schedule new lab reservation, schedule lab for myself. You're only going to be a member of a single class. I'm a member of all these classes because I've been in this system forever and ever. I click here and you'll see lab 3710. I click here and then I can do a reservation on any of these pods. So there's up to 16 pods available. I can click the red line if I want to do it right now. I'm just going to do 47 minutes because I'm not going to really do the lab. And now that pod is booting for me and it will sit here and boot. Real gear available for you to use. And I actually walked through a lot of this lab inside of the presentation I sent out to you. One of the things you are going to learn about basic configuration is setting up and enable secret password. You're also going to learn about different lines, line consoles, and setting passwords on them. If you watch the video, you'll learn that the console is how we get into our out-of-band management, and VTY lines are how we do our in-band management. You also learn how I cheat by just using the up arrow to make life much easier for me as I'm doing the configurations. Let's see, they had the IP address of 192.168.1.1 on this particular machine. Now, what I'm actually going to do now is, Jacob made a very good point. I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to put an IP address on this machine. And what I really like about this is, unlike Packet Tracer, this is a real Windows 7 box or Windows 10 box. So I can go in here and do an actual change adapter settings, and I get the actual Windows interface. I don't get that cut down Windows or host operating system that's in Packet Tracer, which is good, but it's still not like real gear. So let's give this the IP address. This is a static IP address, by the way. 1.10, and we're using a 24-bit mask, which means we're using 255.255.255.0. I will teach you what that means later, but it basically means there's 24 ones in the mask. That's why we say /24. And now if I go into the PC itself, if you ever want to check the IP address on your PC, just type IP config. And we'll tell you what your IP address is. In this case, I am 192.168.1.10. And I know I put 192.168.1.1 on switch 1. So it typically fails as it does an ARP request, and then it will start working. And now you can see, Jacob, as you asked, I now have connectivity between PCA and switch 1. I can even now, because I've set up my VTY line, I can actually go into PuTTY. Just say yes to enable it. I can actually go into PuTTY and put in 192.168.1.1. Go to Telnet, open, and you'll see it asked me for the password, which is Cisco, because that's what I placed it. And now I am sitting on switch 1, but I went across the network to get there. So basically, instead of going in the console port, I went across the Ethernet connection from PCA over to switch 1. Questions about Netlabs? I'll go back out and show you my second. So here's the second lab that I have here, and you'll notice again has been updated for this system. So you must use this document for it to work. Okay. And it tells you here, please wait 7 to 8 minutes for this to boot up to make sure everything is working okay. So it's very clear to show you those things, because it takes a while for this router to boot in this particular lab. So they warn you about it. Yes, Princess.
So you're saying that we would purchase time, or we would purchase equipment for our instruction modes? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, more than likely what you're going to do is purchase real gear that goes in your classroom. This Netlabs system doesn't sell access to the particular labs themselves. This is for, basically this creates a front end in front of all of your equipment so that students can access it. And also it does automated tasks. Like I said, when I end this reservation, it's going to clean off the switches. It's going to reset the PCs back to a snapshot so the next student has a system available to them that's clean. You in your classroom will probably just buy regular equipment, and the students will come in and do the labs using this document right here. Because you've got, well, you'll use the one that's from the curriculum, but you'll just have them actually come in and take 2 switches off the shelf. You'll connect the cables. You'll take 2 of your PCs in your lab and connect them, and then they will do this lab. In fact, that's what our students do in our seated classes. In our seated classes, just down the hall here, I have a classroom that has about 8 pods inside the classroom that are just for students to do hands-on labs in that classroom.
And for Hampton University, when he says you, I'm doing air quotes, you is the CIT. So folks from Hampton wouldn't have to worry about that. Instructors will be provided with that as part of being under Hampton.
Right, exactly. It would be however you decide to do it at your school there, Dr. Harrison. Now, again, if you're teaching online, then you've got a little bit of a quandary. Are you going to purchase Netlabs as a system and put some of your equipment behind it? Are you going to say online students are only going to use Packet Tracer? Online students, we have in the past used a hybrid model, whereas let's say we're teaching it online, but we call it hybrid and we have a lab open in the evenings for maybe 3 hours, 2 days a week or 1 day a week. So the students can come in who are taking those courses and do hands-on. Cisco doesn't say what you have to do. That is your decision. At Stanley Community College, we've been doing this for over 20 years. We've been using Netlabs for almost 20 years. We were the first school in the nation allowed to teach CCNA online. And one of the reasons we were able to do it is because we had this system. I am fairly confident that my seated students and my online students are getting just about the exact same experience because they're doing the labs in this system. If I didn't have this, I would not feel good about teaching CCNA online. I really would, simply because they wouldn't be getting real gear. With this system, I know the students are able to get the real gear. The other thing I really like about this system is when the building's closed, the gear's available. So, our buildings close at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. From 10 to 7 in the morning, nobody can get on this gear. Well, what if a student works, all day long and can't get to class? Guess what? If they're able to get on from any time, they can get access to our gear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we've got 16 pods of it, soon to be 20. Now, I will tell you straight up, a brand new academy is not going to have the type of gear we have. We've been academy for 20 years. We've slowly built our capability. I run a multi-million-dollar data center just down the hall that is just for our instructional purposes. That's not something we had to begin with. 10 years ago, I had it in a closet smaller than my office. And, we were struggling to continue to do it. So be aware, it's something you build slowly, but it's something that you need to decide as an academy what you're going to do at your site. Questions or comments? Questions, comments, concerns?
And Mr. Kelly.
Go ahead, Jacob.
In the real sense, when we want to design network.
You're breaking up, Jacob. Hold on, Jacob. You were breaking up. Say that again.
In the real sense, when you want to design the network, you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. And the conception is that use the best equipment that you have.
Correct.
So the best equipment that you have is going to give you the best performance sometimes and more effective.
Right.
But when we are doing the simulation and in Cisco doesn't have more than what they have, well, how can we show that we're using the best equipment?
Well, I will be upfront with you. I don't think there's a better simulation engine out there than Packet Tracer. Okay. So I haven't seen one. Now, there are things like GNS3, which the legality on, and ENVNV EVNG, which the legality on that is very sketchy. There is a thing called Cisco Modeling Labs we're doing some beta testing on, but it doesn't map directly to these labs the way Netlabs does. What I'm saying is, if you have to rely just on Packet Tracer right now, that's better than not teaching these courses, because your students will still get the knowledge they need to do the configurations. I would put in my budget somewhere in the next couple of years to get at least one pot of equipment so that you can have in your classroom the ability for students to hook things up. Okay. If you're a big school, you're going to teach a lot online, I would look to try to get some funding to put in a Netlabs system of some sort, or to purchase Netlabs access from someone. There are schools that sell it. We don't sell it yet. We're looking at selling it for about $35 per student, but I'm not ready to do that yet because right now I'm giving it away because of COVID. But again, you've got to make that decision for your individual school. I've found, to me, if you're teaching online, there's no better system than Netlabs. Now, is it a difficult system to set up? Yes. Is it difficult to maintain? Not too bad, honestly, because we run 5 different systems. We have 5 different Netlabs here on our campus that we run, and we run it, not our IT department. We run it, so we can run it and still do our job. That's a lot. Don't get me wrong, it's a lot. But on a large, if you're at a large school that has an IT department that's going to help run it, it becomes much easier. What I want you to focus on, though, right now is the following, and that is that you have access to Netlabs. You have the ability to use what I just showed you to do the labs 292 and 3710, which are labs that you need to work on this week. Okay. Those labs are available at netlabs.stanley.edu. I need to put labs in there. netlabs.stanley.edu. So you can log in right there. You can log in at netlabs.stanley.edu right now. Your username is your SCC email address, which is also your username for our systems at Stanley. So if you were Daffy Duck and it was dduck1234, it's at scc.stanley.edu, and your initial password is all lowercase Cisco123. So you have been given access and placed in a class that will let you do hands-on labs with my Netlabs system. If your school chooses us as your academy support center, you will be having access to this system as long as you're an instructor at that school for you to use to get ready for your own labs and your own classes and to prepare yourself. It's not for your students to use, it's for you to use. Now, if I find that I can get enough funding to actually put enough pods online to fund and help everyone, then I will do everything I can to provide access. I'm giving access to about 700 students right now at different schools, not including my school, with these 16 pods. So, when we go to 20 pods, maybe we'll be able to help more people, and maybe we'll be able to help everyone on this call and everyone in my classes. But I can't promise that right now. We're wanting to, but we're limited, and I don't want to make promises I can't keep. I can promise you that you as instructors will have access to the system, and you can do labs on it and prepare for your classes and prepare for your certifications and your teaching. I will try my best to help you out any way I can with your students.
Hey, Kelly.
Yes, sir.
Quick question for you. When we get into the site and just trying to play around with it, for the email address, do we use our school emails, or do we keep it as the Stanley one?
And that's your choice.
Okay.
What he's talking about is when you log in, it's going to prompt you to immediately change your password, and it asks you to put in your an email address. You can put in that email address is optional, so use whatever you want to use in there. But yeah, right now, everyone who's sitting in front of a computer, if you wanted to go to netlabs.stanley.edu, you could log in right now and test your login. So I'm gonna pull up a new browser that is.
Kelly, I'm testing it now and it's telling me I have an incorrect username or password.
Okay, let me check your username. Let me get over here. Let me pull over here so I can pull out. I had to go to I don't want to show the entire class list too.
I can message you what I'm putting in.
Yeah, please do put it on chat and I'll see. I'll also put in chat exactly what is your username. So if everyone wants to, go ahead and try, pop that back up. Go ahead and try to log into Netlabs. Let's see. Okay. That is correct. Let me make sure I didn't misspell keyword change. Okay, let me, and you used all lowercase Cisco 1, 2, 3?
Yes.
Let me reset this password just to make sure. Okay, try again.
I also have to set my password, right? They asked me to set a new password, change.
Yeah, you had to set a new password. As soon as you log in, it asks for a new one.
Thank-
This is one of the problems that I have when I first start.
I have a question.
Okay, Princess.
Why did they leave the E out of Stanley? Is this someone's name? It just
We're too poor for the vowel.
Oh, okay.
That's what I always tell people. We can't afford to buy the vowel. I
kept typing the name wrong because I
Yeah.
kept putting E in there.
Yep, there's no E. I really don't know. I guess I should know since it's Stanley County. But I just joke and say we couldn't afford the E. We're a very rural county where I live, but very much a textile. Okay, let me try something. Katina, if you want to, I'm actually going to pause the recording, folks, because we're all okay, everyone. So it's 3:50, and what I wanted to do again today is to get you up to speed on what the equipment is and what we use it for in our Cisco Networking Academies. Your login for our netlabs.stanley.edu. The other thing I will show you is I have actually inside of your class. I am still sending out the lectures links to your emails, but I've also put inside of here, I've started just putting the lectures inside of the class. So if you want to watch the Module 2 lecture, I have it here. And I've started off with my standard header here, but I have the entire lecture for Module 2. So if you want to take a look at it, it's a little bit longer because it is a hands-on module. So I spend more time showing you the actual hands-on commands. But those are available inside the class, and Module 3 will be up sometime tomorrow. Tomorrow or Wednesday, but probably tomorrow. All right. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tracy.
On the Packet Tracer Labs, some may have some questions they want answered.
Yep.
Are we supposed to answer those questions and upload that as well?
Yes. All you need to do is just answer them in a little Word document or a notepad, either one. And
Okay.
the way I have these set up, one of the things about our the submissions I'm allowing, these are set up to be online submissions, and they're allowing multiple file submissions. So you can actually upload more than one file. So you can actually upload both of them at the same, the Packet Tracer PKA and a file that's got the answers.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Kelly,
Yes.
NDG.
Yes.
Do you want us to set up the schedule, or you will schedule it for us?
No, as far as the Netlabs itself, you schedule those labs whenever you have time.
Okay.
The labs are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you schedule it when you have time. I will tell you that you should, for the most part, have the ability to get access to the labs when you want to, because with 16 pods, we typically have enough available. The other thing, the last thing I do want to teach you about the Netlabs is this. When you're done with a lab, so let's say I'm finished with this lab, I'm done with it. You need to go to reservation now. And because what this will do is it will start to clean this lab up and will then make it available for another student. So again, I've got this pod sitting here. I'm just going to go reservation in reservation now. So when you get finished in your reservations so that you are able to free it up for other students. If you don't, it'll end at the end of your reservation. I just don't want pods sitting there not being used, if at all possible.
Another question.
Okay.
Is there any time that there's going to be any power failure to these labs? Since we have some Mother Nature, tornado, and every other thing, has there ever been any time that we cannot access to it?
Knock on wood, the answer to that is no. I have a 200 kilowatt generator, UPS, dual air conditioning in my data center. You know, could a tornado come through here and destroy this building? Yes, it's possible. If it happens, y'all probably won't see me again because I'm eligible for retirement right now, so I'm out. No, I'm just kidding. It should not happen. Okay, I can't promise you, Jacob, that it won't be down. We had to, for instance, I'll give you a good example. About 3-4 weeks ago, when that big VMware vulnerability came out, we had to basically shut down all the systems and immediately patch for that vulnerability. But we try to make that a rare occurrence. So, you know, with my generator and everything, I'm hoping that it will stay up and running.
Thank you.
Can't make any absolute promises, but we try to keep it up up and running as much as possible. Okay, other questions? Well, everyone, that's all I have for today. I hope that was useful, and I hope you're moving through, working on reading modules 1 through 3. Your module 1 through 3 exam is now on, so you're able to access that if you're ready to take it. I will have the module 3 lecture up tomorrow or the next day. And you're available now. You have available for you the ability to go and do your labs on real equipment inside of netlabs.stanley.edu. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I'm gonna stop the